Baby, right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Monday edition of Before You Bet. Aaron live right here on YouTube and on X. If you're watching on YouTube right now, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button right down there as well. What a weekend of sports we were coming off of. Did you watch this Kentucky Derby? Very close finish. Apparently a close finish in the NASCAR race there yesterday as well. Playoff action in the NBA and NHL was fantastic. Combat sports, the UFC 301, that was pretty good. Much better than it looked like on paper. The Canelo fight, Major League Baseball. So hot on the heels of that, we're going to try to have a hot week here at Before You Bet, covering Major League Baseball and NBA here today. So yeah, like I was saying, great weekend in sports. I think the highlight though of the sports weekend, did you guys see this Tom Brady roast last night? It was absolutely incredible. One of the best, probably the best roast I've ever seen. One of the best things in general, regardless of what it is, that I've seen so far in 2024. I strongly recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. If you're a fan of comedy, it's on Netflix. I had zero expectations whatsoever for this thing. When it was originally announced, I'm sick in my head, so I think, I wonder if anyone's going to tell an Aaron Hernandez joke. I counted about 8 of them. Tom Brady mixes in a 9/11 joke as well. So just completely savage. Belichick was fantastic. Julian Edelman was fantastic. Drew Bledsoe, who knew? Just wildly entertaining stuff. The Ben Affleck segment, that kind of stunk. Ron Burgundy was on there. So if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend checking it out. They did not hold back. Absolutely savage stuff. We say hello to the guys in the chat. Nick Newport Jr. and John Doe are here. Shout out to the fellas. Hit up that comment section, guys. If you want to participate in the show, let us know what your favorite bets are for tonight. It's available over on our X channel and on YouTube, and I will read a few off as the show goes along. Okay, let's get into my guest here for the day. We call him the Ass Man, the Magic Ass Man, John Metler, the pride of Windsor, Ontario. Metler, how we doing?
Good. I didn't see the roast, but I saw clips on X and stuff. Is it like when it comes to roast, can you just say whatever you want? Like there's no rules. Like
yeah,
it was pretty. Like you were saying, some of the jokes, I was like, I can't believe they said that, and then they were just going after it.
They are savage. I've seen a bunch of them in the past, and some people are like, I bet Brady regrets signing up for this. He didn't know. He knew what he was signing up for. He knew they were going to be taking shots at his divorce and the crypto fallout and the Eli Manning Giants, and they went to town. Very entertaining stuff. Okay, so we've been doing, I guess you would call it obituaries for teams as they drop out of the playoffs here. And we saw 2 more teams drop out of the playoffs over the weekend, the Clippers and the Magic. So let's do some obituaries for them. Let's start with the Clippers. And a couple of big takeaways for me. First and foremost, the Kawhi, Paul George Clippers. This team is a failure. I think it's very fair to say that they are a massive disappointment. Fantastic roster every single year for the Clippers. They've been running this back 5 years, for 5 years now, and they still haven't made a Western Conference Finals, for God's sakes. You can blame it on the Kawhi injuries. Maybe that's half fair. I don't know why they decide to extend the guy because he's injured all the time and can't make it through a complete season. So his best years, obviously, I think it's obvious his best years are behind him. Is he's just going to become the pitcher of good health all of a sudden? Probably not. Paul George could bolt, maybe. He's got a player option. I think he's going to opt out of that. Maybe sign an extension with the Clippers. He is from Los Angeles. A couple of other options that we might discuss here. How about James Harden? So this guy showed his true colors when they truly needed him. He got off to a fantastic start in the series. And then the last 2 games of the series, just 23 combined points in games 5 and 6 of the series. So, of course, he doesn't show up when they need him. And we got to be fair. Russell Westbrook, he is a guy that has become a punching bag over the years. I think a lot of the criticism towards Westbrook is unfair, but he was simply awful in this series. Probably shouldn't have been on the court. He shot it at 26% in the 6 games in this series. An average of 12.2 points, rebounds, and assists per game. That's after averaging a little over 20 during the regular season. So his play completely fell off in this series. And one other quick one, I'll let John weigh in on the Clippers here as well. But for super teams to work, I think there has to be a foundation already in place. So a couple of examples of ones that work: the Celtics, when Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. I think that's kind of the whole, people blame the LeBron Big Three Heat as what started this trend. That's not true. It was the Celtics when Garnett and Ray Allen joined the Celtics, who already had a little bit of a core in place. Doc Rivers had been the head coach for a couple of years, and of course, Paul Pierce. LeBron and Bosh joining the Miami Heat, who already had a foundation in place: Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, Dwayne Wade. And then, of course, KD joining the Warriors, who won, 73 games the year before. And then you have a couple of these teams recently, this year's Phoenix Suns, the KD Kyrie Nets, the Clippers every year. Moral of the story, fantasy basketball doesn't work. And I think this era of trying to build super teams, it might be coming to an end. If you look at the better teams in the league, the Nuggets and the Celtics, those are teams who have kind of built through the draft and they're not buying players. So yeah, a lot of big picture thoughts here for the Clippers. Your thoughts on Los Angeles, John, as their season comes to an end here?
Yeah, I agree with you with the super team thing. I do think there's an element of, you kind of saw the Celtics go Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce at work, and then everyone kind of just jumped on that bandwagon of slamming teams together and stuff. The basketball is all about, like, you can have as much talent as you want. If it doesn't fit, like you see it with the USA Olympic team, it's got to fit, right? Like, basketball is a game of, you got to get the right pieces with the right people. And even the super teams that won, they kind of caught like the Celtics made the trade for Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, but like, they were never expecting Rajon Rondo to be the player that Rajon Rondo was. And they kind of caught that helped. Like, he was a big part of them winning that as well. And then even like Miami Heat, like, or like the Warriors, Sean Livingston, like just another guy. There's like always those role players. I think you get so like into like the Suns, you get so into like putting 3 guys together, you kind of forget about the other pieces and like how that cap all works together and like who else is playing with these role players. So I do think that's something you need to consider, like with these super teams. In terms of the Clippers, they were talking about, I know at the broadcast, because I was watching the Mavericks Clippers game, they're talking about the Clippers intend to like re-sign Paul George and re-sign James Harden, and Kawhi's already on extension, like run this back type thing. I just don't see it. One, I think Paul George is probably gone. I think he is leaving. They say he's been negotiating for months, hasn't come to a deal. To me, that tells me he probably wants to leave, or they're not offering anywhere near what he wants, and other teams will. And then James Harden, like extending James Harden, like James Harden is tail end of his career. Like, you even saw it with how the Mavericks were guarding him. Like, he doesn't have the athleticism to score in the lane like he used to. Like, he can still pass, he can still shoot the 3, but like, you're gonna hand this guy a bunch of money, and like he's not the right guy to extend, in my opinion. Is the Clippers, they're in a very unique spot, and I think you would agree with me that they want to win now. They're building a new arena, they want to have all this, but it's not aligning with the way they thought it would.
Yeah, you know what you're going to get with James Harden at this point. When he's in the playoffs next year, take his overs in games 1 and 2, fade him the rest of the series is probably the way to go with him. But yeah, that owner, I don't know. He probably doesn't give a shit about how much money he's paying these guys. But really, Kawhi Leonard and James Harden as 2 like max players, guys entering their mid-30s throughout these deals, probably not the right move there. But like you said, they're starting a new arena. The owner has more money than God. He does not really care. A mesh weighing in. Clippers need to blow this team up. Leonard George combo has not worked. Yeah, I don't think they're going to blow it up, though. They still want to fill the seats in the new arena. Is that opening at the start of this upcoming season?
Yeah, this year. That's why, like, they're gonna try really hard to sign Paul George. They're gonna bring back James Harden. I think that's why they just want to bring the band back together, because they do want to stay competitive in the West. And I mean, at one point they were basically the 1 seed and they fell off just a little bit. Like, they were one of the better teams, but like you said, every time they get to the playoffs and Kawhi Leonard's just not available. I mean, they might treat this differently next year too, where I think he played the most games and minutes he's played in several years. I think those load management rules that were put into place and the Clippers kind of abide by them, they might not next year. That might change for them.
Yeah, Matt Nygaard weighing in. He'd love to see a healthy run for Kawhi. Has not happened since the bubble, 2021. If healthy, I think they would have made it to the finals versus the Bucks. Yeah, I mean, they do have a little bit of an excuse, but it's just something that keeps happening at this point, right? So it's not bad luck by any means. It's just a movie we see every single year with this guy, Kawhi Leonard. Okay, moving on to your Orlando Magic. Then we're going to get into the picks. If you guys don't know, John Metler is our resident Orlando Magic fan here at Covers. And, a lot of these teams on their way out, it's a lot of negativity. But for me, it's all positive with the Orlando Magic. I think they're a team that was ahead of schedule. They're only 2 years removed from having the first overall pick in the NBA draft, and that's working out pretty good for them with Paulo there. He looks to be a superstar for years to come. And not a whole lot to add. I've said it a couple times. They need another secondary scorer, as I predicted. Donovan Mitchell, I think he should be number one on their list because all signs point to him not looking to re-up there in Cleveland. So I think that could be a good landing spot. I see a tweet this morning that there's mutual interest between the Magic and Klay Thompson. Do not do it because you would have to overpay the guy. And then the guy we were just talking about, Paul George, he could opt out. Now he's from Los Angeles, so I don't know if he wants to go from the West Coast all the way down to Orlando there, but that could be an option as well. But Donovan Mitchell should be number one on their list. So John, how do you feel about the Orlando Magic going forward?
Yeah, it was a good season. I mean, I did expect them to lose to the Cavs. I said 6 or 7. They lost in 7. I was kind of hoping they would win and get to go play the Celtics and see like what an NBA Finals contender playoff series like against a team like that looks like. The Magic they're young, very talented. It was disappointing for Franz Wagner that he had not a great game on national television because he's a much better player than he showed. But like Wagner, Banchero, Suggs, even Jonathan Isaac, all these guys, they're pieces they can build around. They have cap space, they have draft picks, they have lots of cap space. Like you said, I do think they're going to be pretty selective though. I don't think they're just going to go and just add someone to this piece just for fun because they have cap space and they have draft picks. I do think they're going to look for someone who they think fits. And I do think Paul George might be that guy because they value size, they value positional size, they value defense. And they're not just going to go sign someone for fun who can't defend. Paul George can defend his position. He's also kind of at that age where I think he'd be fine with deferring to a Paolo Banchero type thing. Like they'll pay him like a superstar, but then I think he fits into, and he's a good 3-point shooter. So do you think Paul George could be a target? I hope to God it's not Klay Thompson. But if it was like a 1 year, 2 year for lots of money, and then he brings shooting, but not like 4 or 5 years, they're gonna be careful because they got to extend Suggs and Franz Wagner, and then they're gonna have to extend Paolo Banchero. So they have cap space, but at the same time, they want to make sure they have enough cap space to keep their guys. So I do expect them to, they'll make a move, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're smaller moves than you think, depending like with the cap space they have, just because I don't think, they're the 5 seed. So, and even just, I'm rambling, so I'm a Magic fan, but they have young guys like even Jet Howard and Anthony Black. They have guys who can just make this team better just by playing one more year. So, it's interesting. I'm very excited to see what they do.
Yes, sir. Okay. So that does it for the obituary section of the show. Going to get right into the picks here. About 1,000 viewers watching live now on YouTube and X. Guys, hit us up. What is your best bet of the night? Drop it in the comments section, and we will read a few off here at the end of the show. Okay. So Pacers Knicks has all the makings of a very fun series. You think we're going to see any clips of Reggie Miller and Spike Lee? Probably. We're going to get beat over the head with it, but who cares? This looks like a fun series. We have a couple of bets for this one. Get us started, John, with your favorite prop bet for this game.
Yeah, so I'm going OG Anunoby over 1.5 assists, and this is a fun one. I did play this last series against the 76ers. He had 0 assists. And then I was talking about on Twitter after game 6, he played 3 games, 141 minutes, Tom Thibodeau minutes right there. And he had 0 assists across all those games. So you're probably wondering, why am I going over 1.5? Well, the one thing I was really curious about, So game 6, he was 1.5 plus 135. I kind of looked at it. I was like, probability wise, this is kind of a good bet. I feel like maybe we should play it, but I'm also curious, like, if he misses again and goes under, are they going to keep adjusting this price based on the last series? Because this is a completely different matchup. It's a completely different series. It's not the 76ers. This is the Pacers, right? I was wondering if they would keep adjusting his price kind of based on last series games, and they did. This open plus 140. That's what I bet it at, is plus 130 now. So, the Anunoby's more of like a 1.5 minus 120, minus 110 type of player. But because he kept missing against the 76ers, this is now up to like pretty good plus money price. When you look at versus the Pacers versus 76ers, he was averaging more potential assists against the 76ers than he did in the regular season. So the potential assists were there. It's not that they just weren't converting. And a big reason for that was Embiid's rim protection. Embiid was stopping a lot of, Embiid's a great defender. He's stopping a lot of layups at the rim, dunks and stuff. That's not this Pacers series. So I just think at this price, it's kind of scary when you look at his recent box scores. But when you flip series to the Pacers, and like the Pacers don't have it, Joel Embiid's not going out there on Monday for the Pacers. So 1.5 plus 130, I'm playing this, and it's honestly probably my favorite bet for tonight.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Knicks rotation opens up a little bit in this series. Probably not. All these guys are playing into the 40 minutes, it appears. So hopefully for your bet, we see OG on the court a lot here tonight. My favorite bet for this game, total set at 217. I like the over for this one. So check out the recent history of these teams here. A recent history of some very high-scoring matchups. 230 or more points in 5 of the last 6 games between these teams. Last time they met, it was at MSG. They combined for 236 points. The total for that game was 237.5. This one all the way down to 217. Neither team is taking their time with the ball. They rank first and second in shot attempts in the playoffs so far. No one is shooting more threes than the Pacers. The Knicks' three-point defense was not good at all versus the Sixers in round 1. So hopefully that carries over at least to this game. And much different opponent for each of these teams here in round 2 compared to what we saw in round 1. And I think this is something that supports the over. So the Knicks are going from playing one of the slowest paced teams in the second half of the season in the Sixers to one of the quickest teams in the Pacers. And check out the Pacers. Their defense had it really easy in round 1. They played a watered-down Bucks team. Of course, no Giannis and half a Dame Lillard. Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez were tied for second in shot attempts for Milwaukee in that series. So that tells you everything you need to know about the lack of a challenge they had on the defensive end. So I like over 217 for the game tonight at Madison Square Garden. Incredible crowd there. Okay, let's move to 2 great games tonight. Let's move to game number 2, T-Wolves Nuggets in Denver. You have 2 props. I have 1. Get us started with Anthony Edwards coming off a fantastic game in game 1.
Right. Yeah, and he's had 3 fantastic games in a row, so I'm going Anthony Edwards under 20.5 points plus 108. Again, very uncomfortable bet. Not an easy one to hit the button on. His last 3 games here in the playoffs, he scored 36, 43, 40. He's the only player, I think 22 or under, other than Kobe Bryant, to have back-to-back 40-point games in a playoff game. That doesn't make you want to play an under, but this total has gone from 24.5 to 28.5 for Edwards. And like, this is, also against, 2 of those games were against the Phoenix Suns. The Denver Nuggets is a much different matchup. There's not as many points to even be had in a game against the Denver Nuggets as there would be the Phoenix Suns. I just think, obviously Anthony Edwards is capable. He can go out there and score 40 points, and he might. This is sports betting. Anything's possible. We're just trying to pick off things that we think are more probable based on like how the odds are structured. I just think Anthony Edwards, he could go out there, have 28 points, and it's still a great game. He's going to score. It's going to be uncomfortable, but the Timberwolves have other advantages against the Nuggets that I think they want to take advantage of. And I think you saw, like, coming out of halftime, they did some 2-man game, and Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert. That puts a lot of pressure on Nikola Jokic, and Jokic is a better defender than he once was. He's not a great rim protector. And when you have 2 bigs coming at you, especially Towns, who can handle the ball, and then you also have Jamal Murray, who's not, he is their worst defender, and they're not just going to let him get away with just standing in the corner. So Mike Conley, that puts Mike Conley on the ball a lot more too. You see them run their horn set, their double drags, all that stuff with Conley. I just think there's Anthony Edwards has a really big game one, and that's inflated his total. But in the playoffs, like, they're not giving away overs on star players. That's just kind of how this works, and it's not fun to bet on these bets and stuff. But if you're gonna go nationally televised game two, Anthony Edwards is coming off 40-point games. It's inflated for a reason, and the edge is to the under. I'm going under 28.5 points just because I think this total is slightly too high. And I do think there's other guys on the Timberwolves who the Timberwolves want to get involved just based on the Nuggets defense.
One of those guys.
Yeah, I know.
Karl Anthony Towns. I like him to go over his point total. So hope we line up pretty good on this one. Set at 18.5 minus 120 are the odds. So he's on just an incredible run versus the Denver Nuggets. He scored 20 or more points in 16 of his last 18 games against them. Stuff in the stat sheet against the Nuggets here. And probably not a whole lot of players who do that. This includes scoring 20 points in game one of the series. He's been lights out from three-point land in the playoffs, shooting it at 52.4%. So hopefully that carries over to game two of this series. And there's more meat on the bone for Cat. Allow me to explain. So he maxed out at 39 minutes played in game four versus the Suns. That is his high for the playoffs. Probably not a coincidence that he scored 28 points in that game. But his minutes and shot attempts in the 5 playoff games that he's played so far, relatively low compared to what we saw from him during the regular season. So hopefully we see him on the court more tonight, shooting the ball more. This is a guy who averaged 23.3 points per game on the road, shot it much better on the road as well. So Cat over 18.5 points. Let's wrap up the NBA picks section with Jaden McDaniels. What do you like for him?
So I'm going Jaden McDaniels over 1.5 assists plus 155. Looks a little random. I've bet this actually multiple times throughout the season. McDaniels has been pretty good to us. He's kind of just one of those guys who you think of him as a defensive guy. So his assist prop just kind of fades a little bit in terms of the market. Also, when I'm talking about Anthony Edwards, they're not giving away overs in the playoff games on superstar players. This is kind of where you look to the secondary players if you're interested in betting overs. Just for McDaniels, his credit goes to his defense, and rightfully so. He should be an all NBA defensive type of player. I just think against the Nuggets, he has a very, very key role here because he can stop Jamal Murray, but also he has the positional size where they can switch and put him on Michael Porter Jr. He was the primary defender on Michael Porter Jr. He could also guard Aaron Gordon. Like he can go all over the place, and it allows the Timberwolves to kind of play chess, and they can move around who's guarding Jamal Murray. And for that reason, like Jaden McDaniels, I just think his minutes, like he's kind of like a guy who's 28 to 30 minutes in the regular season. But in this series specifically, I think his minutes are going to be elevated. And to establish an edge on this number, we only need like a projection of 30 minutes. He played 39 in game one. I just think in this series, those minutes could be higher than that 30. I'm not banking on it based on like to get an edge on this, but the fact that we already have an edge at that lower minute projection, and I do think it'll be higher. That's why I like this assist prop on Jay McDaniels. He's also a guy like they're going to leave him open for threes because you just can't guard everything, but he's not afraid to dribble into the lane and dump it. And like, again, you have two bigs, you have Towns and Gobert, and Jokic is the rim protection. So like once he gets in there and he's surrounded by kind of guys who catch and shoot guys as well. I think this 1.5 plus 150, if this misses tonight, I'll probably come back with it in game three, to be honest, on Jay McDaniels. This is one prop I'm going to keep an eye on in this series because I just think his minutes are going to be high.
Hopefully multiple assists to Karl Anthony Towns for
Yes.
3-pointers. Our resident, so we also have a resident Minnesota Timberwolves fan, Douglas Farmer. He's absolutely over the moon right now. He likes Jokic to go over 29.5 points. However, he does like the Wolves money line in this game. And educating me a little bit here, Joe, Cat is still getting his fitness back after that 7-week layoff thanks to the meniscus injury. Minutes should slowly increase. Hopefully increase a little bit tonight, get close to that 39 minutes he played in the closeout game against the Suns. Okay, let's get into some Major League Baseball here. 3 bets today, 2 of which plus money. Let's start with everybody's favorite bet type. Of course, it is the walk parlay. One of the absolute beauties on the mound here tonight. Tyler Anderson, we're going to pair him with Kyle Gibson, both to have over 1.5 walks plus 153. Bet this over at DraftKings is where I bet it. So Anderson, Check this out. Trend of the day. He's walked 2 or more in 27 of his last 31 appearances. An average of 3 walks per game over his last 4 starts. Then we check out Kyle Gibson. He's been a bit of a walk machine here. He's walked 2 or more in 5 of his 6 starts this season. The one start where he didn't have 2 walks came against the Marlins, who have the lowest walk percentage in baseball this season, and each opponent is walking at a high percentage. Anderson taking on the Pirates, who have the 3rd highest walk percentage in baseball this season. Great plate discipline for them. And then Gibson taking on the Mets, who have the 6th highest walk percentage versus right-handed pitching. So let's hit that, plus 153. Next up, Bryce Wilson. Maybe a bit of an under-the-radar play here. Going to take under 16.5 outs recorded for him. Bet this one over at Bet365. So he's in Kansas City taking on the Royals, and KC's offense is cleaning up at home. 6 in OPS at home. 3rd in OPS specifically versus right-handed pitching at home. We check out Wilson this season. He has been a lot worse on the road. He has a 4.50 ERA on the road compared to 1.93 at home. He spent time as both a starter and a reliever, and that's noteworthy because he doesn't have a whole lot of experience pitching deep into games. You check out his career as a starter, a 5.26 ERA with an average of just 13.8 outs per game. Now you might say, Joe, well, he's coming off a game versus the Rays where he had 18 outs. He went 6 innings in that game. Yeah, that's true. But look at his game logs over the past couple of years. That seems like more of an outlier than anything. So let's go Royals. Chase this guy nice and early. And Andrew Heaney. Let's wrap up with him. How about the Oakland A's? Coming on strong. Usually make fun of them, but we got to give them a little bit of credit. They're playing good baseball right now. We're going to fade this Heaney strikeout total, plus 130 for under 4.5. Easily worth a shot at these odds because, first of all, he stayed under this number in half of his starts, including a couple of rock bottom games where he only had 1 strikeout and 1 and 2 in the other. And as I alluded to, Oakland red hot at the plate right now with a low strikeout percentage. Number 1 in OPS over the last week. They are coming in hot with the 6th lowest strikeout percentage. Open up the sample size a little bit here. They have a low strikeout percentage versus left-handed pitching over the last 2 weeks with a high OPS, despite having a low batting average in balls in play. So maybe due for a little bit of luck here. Some balls can drop for them. So I think some real potential to keep Heaney from hanging around in this game and going over that number. So at plus 130, absolutely worth a shot. There we go. A couple people in the chat. Ram asked, do you have Giants or Phillies? No, I do not. I haven't bet a full game money line yet this season, and I probably won't do it until the playoffs get here. I've been having pretty good success, mainly betting pitcher props and first 5 inning stuff as well. Reason why, you don't know what you're going to get with these bullpens here. Yeah, you can dig into the stats with the bullpens and you can see who might be available, who might not be available. It adds so much time to the handicapping process. And when you have these days when there's 15 games, just makes it a little bit easier for me just to look at first 5 innings and pitcher props. So nothing for Giants or Phillies. Ram also likes Pacers plus 5.5. Tight game there. A couple of people weighing in, John, on your Anthony Edwards bet. Amesh says, the more uncomfortable the bet, the better the bet. I often feel that's the case. I'll be going through like a handicap and I'll be like, oh my God, I want to fade. I used to fade Luka quite a bit. The second game of a back-to-back, he used to be awful in those. And it was always the thing like, oh my, this can blow up in your face. I fade Jason Tatum quite a bit, his point total, because on any given night, like a guy like that can go off for 50, just like Anthony Edwards could go off for 50 tonight. But I have that little voice in my head that tells me you feel uncomfortable. That's probably a good thing. Nick Newport Jr., John giving me the 2 most anxiety riddle picks of the season. There we go. Philemonian, he has Heaney at 5 and under 5.5 strikeouts, minus 150. Yeah, I saw that being offered. I think that was over at FanDuel, had 5.5 at the juicier price, or you can bet the plus 130 range over at DraftKings and Bet 365. Yeah, I still don't mind that at minus 150. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Great show today. Great viewership. Everyone looking forward to getting some bets in here on a beautiful Monday. Great time of year to be a sports bettor. Donovan Mitchell, top scorer in the series, plus 110. It's not bad. You would assume that he will get more shots up than Jason Tatum just because there's more mouths to feed there with the Celtics. I don't love if it was plus 150, I would bet on that. What do you think of that at plus 110, John?
He probably will, like, he will get the most shots for sure, just because the Celtics will spread it around a little more. But like you said, plus 110 still. I don't know the math off the top of my head, but it does seem maybe one a little higher than that. I mean, Darius Garland also. Like Mitchell. Okay, I'll say this. I do think the Magic. I think their plan was for some of those games was to let Mitchell score, not let him score 40 to 50, but they weren't helping. They were just putting like their positional size on him, and if they stopped him, they stopped him, and then they were suffocating the shooters. So I do think there was like an element of letting Mitchell score, because at the end of the day, the Cavs weren't breaking 100. So if he scores 50 and they don't break 100, that's kind of like a win for the Magic. So I do think his point totals were really high against the Magic, but I do think the Magic were kind of not letting it. They were hoping he wouldn't finish as many shots as he did at the rim, but
yeah,
it's kind of how they were guarding him too. So
yeah, I don't like betting player futures. I know this is a short-term players futures bet, but bets that are close to like even money. Like Mike Trout is the one I always use as an example to win American League MVP. I think he was like even money, even maybe minus money at some spots. But it's like, guys, it's a 162 game season. All that needs to happen is him to get injured for a month, and it almost would disqualify him from winning the award. We saw that with Spencer Strider of the Braves. I think he was close to even money to win the National League Cy Young. Probably took a lot of action on that. 4 starts into the season, his season's over. Rip up the tickets. But this is short term. If you're a Cavs fan and you're just looking for a little bit of entertainment, I could see it hitting. But like we said, don't necessarily love those odds there at plus 110. Okay, Metler, big week coming up for us here. Let the people know where they can find all your work.
So I'll have articles on covers.com. You can find picks in the picks page at covers.com. You can follow me on X at John Metler. And most importantly, we have a release show here at Covers with powered by EV Analytics. Adam Scherher from EV Analytics releases picks. That's Tuesday, Thursday, 10:30 a.m. So we'll be on tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. So come watch the release show.
Yes, sir. I will be sure to check that out. Okay, guys, gonna call it a day here. Thank you very much for tuning in. Best of luck with all of your bets. We will see you guys again on Wednesday. Woo!